Hey everyone, this is Tea and Politics with Maya, a weekly podcast where we explore topics as power and empowerment, political leadership, and all of the different weird leadership games that are happening in Brussels, in Europe, and in the world. Currently, if you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, to the Patreon you can support, and anywhere else, please comment what we're doing, suggest guests, and feel free to interact. So, today on episode 2, we're finally having somebody that I've been trying to arrange a meeting with before the podcast exists. And I thought that it's also very funny as Tea and Politics, finally to have somebody who is also spelled as Tea. But we have Tea today. Tea Jarc from the European Trade Union Confederation, a very interesting person who I know with a different hat. So with Tea, we worked as trainers, part of the team of trainers of the European Youth Forum. I know her as a very, very determined woman to change the world as a girl and now a woman.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy to have you here as my guest. Welcome, Tea.
Thank you, Maya. It's really my pleasure to be here. So yeah.
Well, we have a lot to talk about because you have it's not really a new role to be the youth secretary of the ETUC, but I also know that it's not that far away that you actually moved to Brussels. So it's a bit of a new and an old job that we need to discuss. And also I think it's interesting to see when it comes to labor rights, trade unions, syndicates, all of those, like we know what we're talking about, but then I think also a lot of people put a lot of definitions under those words. So that's what we're doing today.
Perfect.
How come you are where you are in life? This is my favorite question to start with. How did you end up on your position?
Well, I'm not sure I have the complete answer, but I guess I can try to describe. So, yeah, as you said, indeed, I would consider myself as an activist. So I was involved in different civil society organizations from early age. I joined the Scout organization at the national level in Slovenia. Then I was the president of the National Youth Council. I was very much involved in the European Youth Forum. I was also a freelance trainer and facilitator. And in this period when I was young, we were hit by this economic and financial crisis. The youth unemployment was rising. So I was working actually a lot of the topic on the youth unemployment. And this is how I got familiar with the trade union that exists in Slovenia, which was a trade union of young unemployed people and students and high school students. So in 2014, I joined the trade unions, which I would never thought that I would.
How old were you back then?
I was 26, 27. Yeah,
okay.
Something like that. And I joined this particular union because I was unemployed at that time. I just finished one job and I just knew their work, and I found it super cool that there is actually an organization who is trying to represent the groups that would be normally left out from the labor market, but also from the social dialogue, from the representation. They are not part of, all of those processes happening. So this is how I joined the unions in Slovenia. And then later I became a president of this trade union. And this also this trade union enlarged itself. So it wasn't only representing unemployed people, but also young precarious workers. And later on, we also managed to include platform workers, just recently in the last year, basically. So yes, I was a president of that union, also being involved at the European level within ETUC, European Trade Union Confederation. So I was elected as a president of a youth committee of the European Trade Union Confederation, and I was at this position for 2.5 years, from 2019 for 2.5 years, I have to calculate. And then basically then I decided that I'm not so young anymore. It wasn't really my decision. Maybe it wasn't my decision. It was just facts, I decided that I want to run in competition with the big bosses, with all the trade union men. So in May this year, European Trade Union Confederation, we had a congress where we elect the new leadership for the next 4 years. and I decided to run for this position, and I was elected. So I'm now the youngest member of a team, and I'm really happy. So it means that yes, I had to move to Brussels. This is what I'm going to do for the next 4 years. It's a challenging job, but I really like it, and I think it's a nice progress. It was hard to leave
impressive progress.
Yeah. It was hard to leave my union because I really enjoyed working there, and I guess I had more liberty and freedom, to be even more provocative. Here it's really, the European level. It's a different kind of atmosphere. But I find so much sense in, addressing those topics at the European level because, the challenges that we are facing are so similar in most of the countries. So it really makes sense, to bring solution for everybody, not just fighting at the national level. As you said, I'm quite new, but maybe not so new at the same time.
Yeah, it's an interesting and it's a very inspiring story of representation because I think that in Brussels we have, I would say, of course, that's a generalization, but there are two major groups of people who are in Brussels working in the EU bubble. I think one category is people like you who went all the different steps and stairs they had to climb nationally. And eventually they were like, no, I need to do this from a larger scale. I want a bigger platform to advocate from and to advocate for and to advocate with. Yeah. And then there are other people who also just really interested in working in Brussels in whatever field, in whatever position. And I see also when we were doing interviews back last year, job interviews, I would see people who would go in a cultural organization, in a trade union, in a disability organization, but they really wanted to be in Brussels. And I must say that I enjoy talking to the first group of people because you have depth and that brings really an interesting national perspective in the different fields you're at. So now, I think for me, it's interesting to see what is interesting for you in that job. So what do you find interesting now, moving to Brussels?
Oh my God, it's so many things. First of all, the level that we're working on, it's definitely different. At the national level, still what I preferred, to be honest, from the national level, it's to see the results way faster, to really have this feedback, to have, the feeling that, okay, now we did something and it's going to count the next day, or maybe not the next day, but in the next month, or maybe the next year, Here, I have to learn how to be very patient, which is super hard for me because I'm very goal-driven, But at the same time, yes, you need to understand what is the logic behind it. Because when you're adopting positions that are going to influence millions and millions of workers across Europe, of course, you need to have time. You need to have a process established that is going to ensure transparency, democracy in this process, that is going to involve all of the different national perspective and all of the different stakeholders, such as social partners, for example. So this is why, bringing the solutions at the European level, I would say they take a lot of time. But once they are adopted, they apply for million of people. So I'm still learning to be patient. But at the same time, really also treasuring the value of this process. Because if it's done in a right way, it can be very democratic, very transparent, very inclusive, and it's also going to bring the best results. So I'm trying to find the balance in this. And at the same time, just very practically here, I'm covering so many different topics that I weren't necessarily dealing on or working on at the national level. So here, the variety of topic, it's quite demanding, but at the same time, very challenging. Yeah.
I can see that whole job, first of all, being very challenging, but also to be extra challenging for somebody who is used to having results, who is very determined and who is... Sometimes situations are quite obvious. And to me, that's also a challenge when it comes to advocacy, because sometimes you can just see, well, of course, there are gray areas, but sometimes it's really only white or black. You don't need a master's degree and 4 years of policy making. You just need to be there, observe and see. And I think that this challenge of patience, if you have actual background in actual work on a national level, it's And
especially if you have a background in grassroots level, you know? yeah, as I said before, like in my union at the national level, we managed to organize platform workers, you know. This is super big challenge because we literally had to chase them down the street, you know, because we were talking about riders who are delivering food. And you cannot just go to one place and meet them at the workplace or in a factory, because they don't have a workplace, you know, their workplace is the street. So I mean, for me, this is like really grassroots, that you need to chase them down the street, that you need to have a pitch ready, you know, at every time, that you need to convince them, you know, that okay, maybe if you organize, we can improve, you know, working conditions together with you. You know, we have talked with 10 of your colleagues, they are facing the same challenges. And it's really, you know, this face-to-face contact with the real situations that workers are experiencing. For me, this is so valuable. And I really hope that, I will have the possibility to maintain this contact. Because for me, of course, I can talk with trade union leaders. And of course, this is important as well. But I really want to have those very basic situations, what is happening in certain sector and what are the challenges on daily life, because this is what they feel, you know. And then if I manage to transfer those challenges into political solutions, if I manage to advocate for those political solutions at the European level, then I would say that my work can make sense, you know.
Yeah, I think that this balance is sometimes lacking in different political fields in Brussels, because the people who have this grassroots experience, the actual conversation with the people whose problems they need to change, sometimes that is lost, because in here it's so slow sometimes, and it takes so many different debates and so many different points, that actually the point of the average person whose problem you are trying to solve, it's already gone.
Yeah, but I think this is exactly the challenge of most of the European institutions. That they are detached from their citizens, and that you know, the democracy seems so far away, because also the genuine citizens, they don't have the feeling they can influence the European decisions, which should not be the case. And we need to, in my opinion, we need to enlarge democratic, you know, mechanisms, principles, structures. But I mean, at the same time, this is why exactly we have organizations that represent certain groups of people. And trade unions, we are here exactly to represent the needs of the workers. And then, then you have other organizations who represent the needs of other groups of people. And if the institutions finds a way how to talk with all of those different organizations, then I would say that, those are all of the puzzles of democracy, more or less. It's just that, sometimes institutions forget to invite us for those talks and the meetings, or, exactly. Or they have other interests in mind, but
You're obviously very, very passionate about what you do, which is great, and which is very, I don't think that I need to explain that, but can you elaborate maybe which parts of your work made you proud, or is there any certain situation that made you really proud of your work? And then maybe to also share another situation where you were not that happy, even though you tried your hardest, you were unhappy with the situation at the end.
I mean, maybe, of course, you're super proud when you achieve, I don't know, adoption of a new law, or a new law changes, or like a resolution, or new policy development, of course. But overall, I would say that I'm the most proud of keeping the focus and keeping this idea, what could trade unionism be? What are the potentials, and really just staying true to this ideal, which I know that it might sound naive, but it's also not easy, you know, to work within the trade unions. And as I said, like, our trade union at the national level was very special. I mean, that you organize unemployed people was unacceptable for some of the other colleagues, because they think, but you're not a real trade union, you know, we only represent workers. And it's like, I mean, if they would have a job, they would be workers as well, you know. So I mean, just staying true to this idea that everybody, you know, can be a member of a trade union, just fighting also within our own organization. I would say that I'm mostly proud for this, just staying on the track, and also changing what trade unions are, really, because trade unions are not old gray men, it can also be young women,
Young ginger women.
Yeah, exactly. Why not, So I think that, because of this, yes, we changed the trade unionism at least a little bit in Slovenia. We opened the door, we opened new horizons. And because of this, of course, we had a lot of political success as well. So I don't know, we managed to ban unpaid internships in Slovenia. Slovenia, it's one of the rare countries where, no, you have to be paid for the work that you're doing, So we managed to ban this. We managed to organize platform workers. We managed to prevent Uber entering the Slovenian market, basically. So we don't have Uber because it's exploiting workers. We managed to, of course, ensure some changes in the labor law, in the law of the inspection, that gives more protections to the workers. So a lot of policy reforms, for sure. But I think that, I would say that I'm the most proud of this trade union renewal that I'm fighting for, which is really, making our structure count in nowadays as well.
That's very important. That's very important because I think that you said it a bit as a joke that a lot of people see trade unions as old, gray-haired men. But I must say that without you in the picture, a lot of the times I'm struggling to think of a lot of young people, first of all, even men or women, whatever. But it is a bit of a shared space it's so distant that people, unless there is a problem, don't think about it.
Yeah. And I mean, there are so many myths and so many misconceptions about what trade unions are and what they are not. Some of the skepticism are even justified. Of course, if we haven't seen, young women within trade unions, it's maybe because they didn't get to the leadership position. They were there doing the work, but maybe, they weren't taking the active or the leadership role. So I do believe that it is our responsibility as trade unions to rethink how we function, what we do, to always, go back to our basics, which are, very democratic values, solidarity, human rights, all of this, inclusiveness. And our image have to portray this. Our structure has to portray this. Our leadership has to portray this. Hopefully things are improving in most of the countries.
I think that they are. I think that maybe the speed of how they're improving is different. And then this is where I think people get frustrated because there are countries where now when you describe what the labor market needs to be, you use words as inclusion and human rights. But then if you go to the actual labor markets of many countries, these are not words that you will find at all. So you have the capitalistic filter, which is just be efficient, be as efficient, borderline to be exploited and then be proud of it. If you have a burnout, hide it and continue. And if it's too much, then just hide for a couple of months and come back and be less efficient, but just be trying to pretend to be more efficient. And I think that that's changing also because of this millennial Gen Z workforce entering the place where people just cherish their mental health a bit more than being exploited, which is a very obvious thing, I think. But how do you think that the labor market is changing? And do you think that human rights are actually part of the labor conversation at all, of the workforce conversation at all?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, the labor market is changing constantly, but not necessarily in a good way, always. No, but those examples of young people being rebellious, I love them. Yes, and this is how it should be. But in general perspective, labor market is getting flexibilization of labor market. It's destroying the industrial relationship. So there is less and less protection. They want to loosen up the safeguards. The working conditions are not improving as fast as, for example, productivity, And indeed, we are living in this neoliberal capitalistic system that force you to be more productive, to forget about any of the rights that have been achieved, to fight, for better position and to fight with the other workers because, they are competing with you. They will take your job. If you're not willing to accept those working conditions, we will find somebody else who will do it, I mean, this is the reality for most of the people. So I'm super happy whenever I see people who are saying no to this, who know their rights, who know their value, who are saying like, no, I'm not going to accept exploitation. But of course, for this, first, we need to empower the workers. We need to educate them that they do have rights. You don't need to work in unpaid internship, for example, you know.
But you mean,
It
I'm
should
sorry,
be.
but there's still organization in Brussels who haven't paid internships.
I
And I
know.
think that this is so, it's like we don't talk about it because it's like we shouldn't shade the EU umbrellas, but there are still EU umbrella organizations who, okay, I can state for sure that until next year I've seen a couple who are not paying their interns. And you know, this also not only is extremely unfair to the actual interns, but I think if we have to evaluate the power of an internship for a young person, this is the way you open doors for your future career. And for example, for a Romanian, for a Bulgarian, maybe for a Slovenian, it's not like financially it's not possible not to start an unpaid, like you cannot start ever.
I mean, as a working opportunity, of course, it's an amazing opportunity, but it's an opportunity only for the privileged one, only for the ones who can afford it, you know? So it's not inclusive for everybody. It's actually discriminatory, you know?
It is,
So, I mean, and I know, yes, unfortunately, there are still so many organizations who are doing it. Exactly. Also the organizations who defend human rights, you know, or something like this. And when you ask me, like, labor rights are human rights. I mean, this is what we managed to achieve throughout the history. It's just that, sometimes, you know, this market tried to force us to forget about it. But I mean, when we were talking about violations of workers' rights, we were talking about violations of human rights, actually, because they are written in our constitutions, in international resolutions, you know, they are adopted, they are protected by court. But unfortunately, it's happening on daily basis that they are being violated, those kind of rights.
I'm thinking now when you're saying that, so the link between human rights and labor rights, and then on the abstract way, the link between your responsibility as a worker, as an employee, and then your value as a person and your rights as a person. And I think this is a really interesting conversation to have, because I think a lot of people see their value, unfortunately, only in their professional capacity. So if I'm a good, especially I must say that this is especially valid when it comes to women in power. And we'll go to the subject of women in leadership roles. But I read something, I think it was from Gabor Mate, which is my favorite Hungarian psychologist. So he explored a lot between the link between autoimmune disease and women in the workplace, women in managerial positions. I really hope that I'm not misquoting that, but I hope I'm right. But he found a lot of links, and then it was very visible that a lot of women just reshape the pressure at work into autoimmune diseases, and that this link is much higher than the link between that same thing, for example, in men. And I think that this is a problem of our time, that a lot of people see their self-worth in their, like, am I a good worker? That means I'm like a good human. And then there's so much more to life than work. And I know you're a trade union person, but there's so much more than work.
Exactly. Like, I love work, indeed. I'm a workaholic myself. But I would never buy this logic. And it's a shame because, like, just a couple of weeks ago, I was at an event where actually the employers' organization literally said this, that, you know, human beings are valued by their productivity or what they bring to the labor market.
That's horrible.
Exactly. I was shocked that nowadays they are still saying this. I mean, my worth, it's not defined by my salary or by my contract or what I do. I mean, my worth is defined by relationships that I have with other people, you know, by how I treat human beings, how I treat the planet, you know, like it's so much more than that. But I mean, I think it's very much connected with the fact that, work can have an influence on more or less every aspect of our life. Like, we spend, 1/3 of our life working. So it really shapes us. And not that it shapes our personality, because, a lot of people still identify themselves with the work, but it, of course, influences our economic situation, our social situation. It influences where can I live? What kind of house can I afford? Or maybe I cannot afford a house. It influences where I can send my kids kids to school. I mean, even, the profession of the parents has a huge influence on the potential of the well-being, of course, of the children, but also of the profession of those children, How to break this vicious circle, it's not so easy. Of course, our work influence our health, not only help that, because the health doesn't stop once you finish, 8-hour work shift, you bring the stress home, it influences everything that you can afford, not only physical health, mental health, but like what you eat, if you can eat quality food, So I think that, yes, work and how we're being treated at work and what does it gives us has a huge impact. But again, and this is my pitch, why to join trade unions. This is exactly why, yes, you should have a say in this. This is exactly why, workers should have a say about their salaries, about working conditions, about occupational health and safety, about the income, that it's, a decent income so they can live quality life themselves and they can provide for their family, And also beyond that, because of course, work, it's linked to all of the other subsystems that we have in a country. If we are being a welfare state, if we are collecting taxes, if we are, if we are taxing the rich, or the taxes are being unequally distributed among the people. If we have free education, if we have childcare, for example, so that women can actually go to the labor market, and participate. Because if there's no childcare, this is preventing women, to enter the labor market. So all of this is so interlinked that... it would be hard to imagine how to liberate ourselves from the work. But in my wildest dream, I do think about this. When work, it's not going to define everything about me. And that, yes, hopefully with the technology and robotization and automatization, we could actually dream about, living beyond work. And to be honest, this is possible now. Like, we produce enough so that everybody in the world could have a decent living. It's just not distributed equally. And this is where the problem is, We are producing more and more, and it's even unsustainable, not only for human beings, but also for planets, So I think that we need to start rethinking if the ongoing productivity and GDP growth is really the key. In my opinion, it's not, there are alternatives to this.
I remember we argued a lot with when the United Nations, the UN, the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals were introduced. I think a lot of us work nationally on different parts of the Sustainable Development Goals, the gender equality, the shrinking of poverty, the peace, the justice, access to water, whatever. I don't remember all of them by heart. But there was economic growth in there. And I think that a lot of us, when we finally had the final discussion, we were like, but yeah, you cannot really put that as a goal equal with all the other goals, because that is part of the problem. The more you produce, the less of the other thing you have. So you have to produce very consciously. And it was not like conscious economic growth. It was economic growth. So I think that we're still somehow focused on kind of the wrong thing, but then still fighting all of the problems that come with it.
Exactly. Yeah. Because economic growth in the system that we're living now, which is neoliberal capitalistic system, it exists, or like it feeds itself from exploiting the labor market, from exploiting the workers. And they are always going to look for a better worker who is going to be, first of all, yes, willing to forget about their workers' rights, who is going to be a man, who is going to focus, on the job, who is not going to give priorities to the family, who is not going to dream about having a free time, So who is always going to be a better, more productive worker. And of course, women are the first one who fall under this, because, they are the only one who have, the reproductive abilities. So employers will never see them as equal, because they will always think, no, but like, what if she gets pregnant? She will not be coming to work for a couple of months or something. So they are just looking for new and new exploitations. And unless, we change this idea of economic growth and mostly put other factors in it. I mean, we have to measure progress in different ways. Economic growth, it's not the only criteria. It
You know,
shouldn't be the main
listening
criteria.
to you now, I was thinking that maybe half of the people who are listening will say, yeah, you're right. The other half would say, no, we cannot blame men or employers for everything. But I had a story. So a friend of mine told me a story which was very personal, but of course I will not name her or the employer. So if you're listening, I'm not saying anything, and it's not you. So she was in a leadership position, and she's in her late 30s. She got recently married. And because she's a very responsible leader who is in charge of developing a network, she shared that she's trying to have a baby with her husband. And she was let go 6 months after sharing that decision. She was not pregnant yet. And when they let her go, they told her, well, we're just looking for something else. And she was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you're just looking for somebody who cannot get pregnant. And they said, no, of course that's not the case. We're just very happy with you, but we're just looking for something different. And she said, well, I've never had any bad feedback given to me. So it's not that I was failing to deliver. It's been okay. And I never, you never gave me bad feedback. What the hell? And I said, yeah, well, just good luck. You've been wonderful. You have many talents. We wish you good luck. And she was let go. And the thing is that in this case, you cannot really even have a legal action because you're not pregnant. But even the prospect of you thinking that in your late 30s, which unfortunately for women, more or less, it's you have to take a decision up to this point.
No, but I mean, this is a direct example of discrimination of women. And we in the trade unions, we see it every day. And especially, because in my previous union, we were working with young unemployed women. And this discrimination starts exactly when they're recruiting. So women when they're looking for jobs and when they have a job interviews in Slovenia, many times they ask them, so what are you planning to have a family? This is a direct question that only women get. Men don't get it, first of all. And at the second point is that this is illegal. In our law, it's written that employer cannot ask questions that are not related to work, I mean, that are not relevant for work. So first of all, they are being discriminated in recruitment process. They are being discriminated in promotion process. So they're not getting promotions as much as men. They're being discriminated when their contract could be prolonged, and especially with the rise of non-standard forms of employment and flexibilization, you don't have open-ended contracts anymore, Otherwise, you would have this security. But if they're renewing your contract every year or every 2 years, as soon as they get a
you're on hold all the time.
Exactly. Yeah, but also employer, exactly. If he thinks, oh, no, she might get pregnant, let's not renew her contract, How are they going to, fight this? Exactly the example that you presented. So they can be let go. And it's discrimination based on gender.
But the thing is that this with the pregnancy and the babies and the kids, and of course, when you have a child, your priorities absolutely change, of course. But that's life, and that's normal. And that doesn't mean that you just, immediately become a bad worker who doesn't care about their team or about their responsibilities. And I think that also a lot of the women, and I must say that, so that story, I didn't name anyone, but in the other story was actually me. And I remember that when I was offered my first position as an executive director, when the interview was over, I actually said to one of the interviewees, you do know that I have 3 children, though. Are you sure you want me? And then they knew, and they didn't care at all, because they were really okay with just how I am as a person and what I bring on the table. But to me, and then I reflected, why did I say that? It was such a dumb thing to say. And now when my friend was telling me that, I was like, it's the same thing. It comes from the place of, look, I will not mess it up, even though I'm a parent, which is ridiculous. Of course you will not mess it up being a parent, but the fact that society makes you think that you will.
Exactly.
The employer didn't do anything wrong in my case, but I was like, I want to let you know, you won't mess it up with me.
Because you were actually surprised that they are a good employer. Exactly. But how wrong is that we are surprised when we see a good employer, This tells you everything. No, this shouldn't be, a lonely case. Every employer should value their workers because of what they can bring. And the absurd thing about all of this is that they don't ask the same questions to the guy. If it's a father, they don't have doubts in him. If it's a mother, they think, she will stay at home when the child is sick, Okay, but let's ask ourselves, why doesn't the father stay at home, or all of those things. So, I mean, we have to admit it, like the labor market, it's still a place that discriminates between gender. It's a fact. Yeah.
Well, I think that there are many stories which are left hidden when it comes to the labor, the work experience of all of us. But is there any story that you've heard or you experienced that influenced you so deeply that this is what you are right now because of that story, or anything that you've experienced when it comes to workforce or to I don't know, experiences that you've had?
Oh my God. Yes, so many. No, to be honest, I'm really tough and I'm this fighter. But I also have to admit that because, we were working with vulnerable groups of people, every time when they came to us asking for legal help, I was breaking down. Okay, of course I was, providing the legal help there, but it really touched me. All of those
from
stories.
The inside,
Exactly, because it's so hard to hear, all of those violations, And yes, it's like highly educated women who did everything right in their life. They have, 2 different degrees, and they sent 200 applications, looking for a job, being desperate, blaming themselves, not knowing what they did wrong. I mean, those kind of things, it hurts you because you cannot provide a job for every person. At the same time, you also know it's not you who is the problem. It's the system. You didn't do anything wrong. You did everything that you were told to by your parents, by your grandparents, by your teacher, by the system. You have to behave very good. You have to have good grades. You have to go in school. You have to go to the university. You need to graduate, and then you will live a good life.
So you ticked all of the boxes, and then
exactly.
nothing.
And at some point, no, this is definitely not true, And especially, because at that time, I was this young person as well. In the previous economic and financial crisis, the labor market collapsed, unemployment was skyrocketing, especially for young people. So it's those kind of stories, or basically, just this insecurity, especially with precarious workers, when you hope that they're going to prolong your contract and you're doing everything at the workplace. You're sure that they're going to do it. And then from one day to another, they let you go, And then you're desperate because maybe you just started renting your own apartment. And how are you going to pay the rent, It's all of this that it's connected. So,
I was about to ask you, why do we need trade unions as the next question? But I think your answer now targets exactly that, because of representation, because there's no representation of in this conversation. Yeah.
And very honestly, we need to balance the power. We need to balance the scale. Right now, it's the capital who is winning, who is winning at the political scene as well, who is winning in this system, so-called democracy. The interests of the capital are prevailing. It's not the interest of the citizens that is prevailing. It's not the interest of the workers. Workers are still, and this is by international labor law, are considered as the weak party in a labor relationship, always. And this is why they are enjoying better protection. But so let's admit, okay, workers are the weakest part. Unless they organize, unless they come together, unless they go on strike, unless they show their power, unless they have a voice that represents their interest. So it's because of all of those reasons, it makes sense that, we organize and we fight collectively. Because if we fight individually, it's harder. It's just harder, and it's less likely that we're going to succeed. And as I said before, the problem, it's not coming from us as the individuals. Many times it's the system.
And this is why it takes so much time to change it.
Yeah.
When I was in Bulgaria last week, I met a couple of old colleagues, and we had a really nice afternoon coffee. And, we just had elections in Bulgaria, which we do quite often in the last 2 years. But we were discussing, how do you make a point about your salary with the policymakers, especially when it comes to local elections, especially when it comes to people in the social sector. But the example they gave me was that let's say, for example, in a random therapy center, the physiotherapy starting salary in Bulgaria would be around 400 euros after taxes, which you would need most of the time like a master's degree to start that kind of a job. So I think that the subject of the working poor, so the people who are full-time employed somewhere and they're fully like their employer is trying their best, but it's still not a private company, but either a state subsidized thing or a foundation trying to do something. A lot of them are stuck in poverty because of their career choice, which is ridiculous.
Exactly. And I mean, especially because they are highly educated. They didn't do necessarily a wrong choice. I mean, it's a problem of exactly how we value the work, and like, what is this minimum that everybody should get? I mean, if you are working full time, there's no way that it could be acceptable that you are working poor, that you cannot live, you and your family, that you cannot provide. I think that this is exactly why, first of all, the collective bargaining, it's very important, because the trade unions, if they represent this group of people, they have to fight with the employers and improve the wages. And like the best way to improve the wages is collective bargaining. That's been proven in all of the countries. Another option is to establish the statutory minimum wages at the national level, and the wages then are normally calculated based on the real costs of living, on the basket of goods or something like this. It depends what kind of indexation they put in it. For example, also inflation that we're all facing. So I think that, it's just important to say that nobody should live in poverty, first of all, and especially then, not workers. So yes, but unfortunately, this is the case, and especially now in the cost of living crisis with this whole inflation, this is becoming the reality for more and more workers. And it's simply unacceptable. And this is exactly what we need to fight against. Because at the same time, it's absurd that in this same crisis, the cost of living crisis, skyrocketing inflation, there are companies who are having, the biggest profits. And it's exactly, the energy sector, the corporations. And again, it all comes to distribution, distribution of wealth that is being created, which is being concentrated in the hands of the elites or in the hands of just few. But as I said, this is because of the whole unjust system, how is it possible that the workers cannot have a living wage, and at the same time, they're creating so many profits.
And in the same time, the person who tells you they cannot pay you properly is buying their 7th yacht.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, for all of the employers who cannot pay their workers freely, we should really ask ourselves, do we need those kind of employers at all? If you cannot pay your workers, no, then you're not providing jobs, because we cannot accept that they're just saying but it's better than nothing. No, it's not better than nothing, because then we're lowering our standards, and this is something that we cannot accept.
I like how left this podcast is starting to sound. To make it even lefter, let's go towards the topic of women in the workplace. So not only about women in leadership position, because I think sometimes the feminist conversation becomes also a bit elitist. So we start talking only about women in leadership, and then we end up talking about half of the women in boardrooms, but then how many of them are representing minority, for example, or how many of them have any type of challenging background. Let's start from small baby steps of the conversation. What are your thoughts on the topic of women in the workplace? And of course, equal pay.
Yeah, but I mean, as I said before, women are being discriminated at the labor market. It starts with the recruitment process. It starts with those questions about your family, and if can you be the ideal worker who has only one priority, and this is to be even more productive, So women are being discriminated, and it also, of course, reflects in the payment. There is a gender pay gap, and I mean, the gender pay gap varies from countries. Like I think the highest one it's in Estonia, where it's like 20%.
Really?
Yeah, it's Estonia, and then I think it's Austria, and then Germany.
Really? I would
yeah.
never guess that. I would
Yeah.
always go south for that kind of like bad charts.
No, one of the lowest pay gap. Okay, Luxembourg eliminated the pay gap, so we have to congratulate them. I
Yeah.
think they have like 0.2. But then I think like second best it's Romania. And then
Bravo.
Slovenia. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, yeah, it's big countries. Like, yeah, I think Germany, it's like the third country that has around 16-70% of gender pay gap. So basically, yeah, it means women are being paid less. This is the fact. So if we compare, the amount of money that women get and the amount of money that men get, women get less. So yeah, of course, this is because of different factors. So first of all, one factor is that we are not providing equal pay for the work of equal value. So this is the first concept, that some of the professions are counted as, professions that can be paid less. And it's mostly surprise, surprise, women working in those professions. So for example, care or, health, like nurses, also teachers, they are normally paid less or something like this. So if we look at the feminized professions, they are treated as less valuable, so they have, of course, less pay. Then, of course, another factor that contributes to the gender pay gap is part-time work. So women are not as fully employed as men. Why? Again, because of their other roles in a society, because they take care of children, because they do domestic work, because they are the only one that can get pregnant. So yes, it means that for a couple of months you will probably be on maternity leave if you're deciding to be a mother, So it's all of those factors that at the end of the year contributes that you earn less, So yeah, it's like all of those different factors. And then, yeah, of course, also the fact that, yeah, women are not on high positions. High positions are paid more. If we don't have women in leadership, they cannot earn more. They are less likely, to be promoted. So it's all connected, and it's all contributing to this inequality between men and women. And although this has been recognized and it has been put in the EU treaties, and it's something that we are all aware and we are trying to address, it's still a fact. And I think it would take, I think it's predicted that it will take us, 130 years, to ensure gender equality. And it's like, no, I don't have 130 years. I want to see it in my lifetime. And if this is the case, then we should put all resources to speed up this process. This is just simply unacceptable, that we calculate that, it's still a long process. No, it could be quite an easy process to fix. Yeah.
I think people sometimes maybe don't really understand that this is, apart from the statistic, this is a lot of human stories.
Yeah.
And many times these are stories which just, I would never thought that, for example, I will be part of a gender pay gap situation, and I'm still legally not talking about it publicly, but eventually I will, and I'll be very happy to share that. But what I can share is that maybe a few years ago, I was consulting in a company, in an organization where we had to create this kind of competence grid and the relation between salaries and growth. And it was one of the first things I started to do as a consultancy in HR. And we were comparing different profiles of employees, and we had two people doing exactly the same job. And I was talking, by the way, to a director who was a woman. And I asked, why are those two people in the same position but have quite different salaries? Is it about experience? Is it about what's the story? Let me know so I can write it down and I can calculate a good way, a good pathway. And she said, well, because it's a man and, he's the head of the family. And she didn't even blink. And I was like, but you're not supposed to do that, because maybe that girl is ahead of the family because maybe she's a single parent or whatever. I don't know. You cannot just do that.
It's not, even if she's not, even if she doesn't have family, if she
Yeah.
does the same
Yeah.
work, she
Yeah.
should be paid the same.
Yeah,
you know? No,
exactly.
this is, okay, this, it's very straightforward.
No, it was very straightforward. And that's, I think, what a lot of the stories I've seen when it comes to labor and rights and women, many times people are okay to say out loud very weird things because they have never been confronted that these are not good things. And you not only should not say it out loud for legal reasons, but you should also not think about it, and you should not manage an organization in this way.
Exactly. You should not do it.
It's a change. I really hope it doesn't take 130 years. But I think it's an ongoing change. So how can we speed that up? Maybe do it like for 70 years and not for 130?
Yeah, I mean, exactly about, talking about it, putting it out there at the open. Just this year, European Commission, for example, this is what we have been involved very much in as a trade unions. We adopted, European Commission adopted the directive on gender pay transparency. So it's really calling for having transparent data about the salaries, who is paid how much, and then comparing those salaries between men and women, and then if we see, because this is what the directive is establishing as well, yes, like they have to report about it. And then if we see that, there is a gap, they have to act on it exactly to close this gap. This is the whole idea. Then at the same time, yes, like just coming up with the supportive measures. So if we want to involve young people, first of all, at the labor market, because still, like not young people, women, like women are not equally represented at the labor market as men. And many times this is related to parenthood or motherhood, more specifically, so having public services help, if we have childcare, then they can go back to the labor market. But it's not only about childcare anymore, because nowadays we see that more and more, again, women are taking care of the elderly members of their family as well. So many of the women are trapped that, yes, for several years they have been taking care of children, but then their parents...
Then the parents and the grandparents.
Exactly. Yeah. So we need also elderly care, or we need public services that are going to provide this so that women can have... at least the same chance, to enter the labor market. And then, of course, it all comes also to the domestic work, Women are doing more unpaid work,
The informal care is there,
Exactly, care, but also, cooking, cleaning, all of those kind of things, So, there are millions of things that we could change. Of course, some of those changes have to happen in our mind, in our perception. We need to drop the roles of the women, the prescribed roles that we have from the past, that certain jobs are not for women, that women are less capable, that they should stay at home, they should be mothers, all this. No, we need to drop this. We need to start seeing them as equal. And then, of course, make sure that they can actually be equal. And if we do this, yes, they will prosper and they will take also leadership positions. No worries about that. We just have to remove the obstacles that they face right now, because it's not them.
Which are a lot. While I was listening to you about the maternity leave, there's something that I strongly disagree with. And I think that we're publicly not having this conversation enough. There is this expectation that you not only have to be pregnant at a certain age, deliver the baby, be very healthy, be in the best shape of your life mentally and physically, but also go back very fast to work. And that not only contradicts, honestly, my internal feelings about it, because I wanted to be home after my kids showed up to this world, and I wanted to spend some time away from work. Luckily, I was part of very flexible organizations like the European Youth Forum and the Social Tea House, so I managed to somehow do that together. But I must say that, for example, now in Belgium, if I ever want to have another child, this between 3 and 6 months of maternity leave to me sounds ridiculous. I don't think that between 3 and 6 months is enough. And it's not only me. So there is the World Health Organization, which says in so many contexts that the first 3 years of a child are the most important. So neurodiversity-wise. So when it comes to neuroplasticity, when it comes to brain development, when it comes to everything. These are the 3 years that you need your parents to be around you. And especially the first year, it's actually your mom. Because you already mentioned that reproductive wise, it's still the woman who does that. But
Exactly. And you should not pay, the burden or the fault that you're the only one, that can give birth, and then, feed your child, for example, or something like this. And yes, if you do want to stay longer, you should have this right. And at this time, you should be financially supported. You know, this is the problem, that you're not. And yes, I very much agree that nowadays, exactly what you describe, it's this tendency that we need to be productive at all time, you need to be the best. Now, like for women, if before maybe like the mentality was, no, women are not capable, they should not be there or do this. I think that, now really the narrative is changing. Like, no, you can have it everything and you should have it everything. You should be a mother. You should be a director. You should be this. You should be fit and healthy and good looking and, also have your hobbies and your friends and your
you should
husband.
Smile while doing all of that.
Exactly, So it's another pressure that we need to have it all, Maybe we cannot have it all, especially not by ourselves, if there is not a system that will support us in this.
No, you can absolutely not have it all. You will lose your mind if you try to force yourself into all
exactly.
of that.
Yeah. So this is also unhealthy, expectations that now you need to have it all. And if you don't, you're again not sufficient. You're not good enough as a woman, because you should have it all.
Yeah. It's a tough world we're living in. I think so. We already bashed the system, the employers.
Of
now
course.
let's try to turn back the conversation so some listeners can
keep up with us.
What if you have a genuine advice for like good employers who are actually trying to be good employers, but sometimes they are lost between the responsibilities they have as a business owner? Because obviously, I am very critical of employers, but I also understand the value a business brings in society, the value of products, of services, of salaries, of taxes. So what would a good employer do ethically to make sure that there is an equal representation, equality generally in the workplace?
Yeah, I would really just advise employers, yes, be good employer because it's going to pay off as well. It has been proven, that inclusive, working environment and fair working environment also contributes to the productivity. If you have happy employees, happy workers, they are going to do more. So it's going to be even better for your business. Women at the leadership position, are benefiting the structure. They are bringing money. They are capable of being a good leader. So maybe yes, put them at this kind of position, enable them. Also diversity of the co-workers. So it's not only about gender. It's also about race. It's about ethnicity. It's about the background. This helps, to stimulate the workplace as well. So yes, for the employers, I would really advise, just be inclusive. Just find a way to reach out to diverse group of people, help them out. And trust me, it's going to pay off for you as well. And also, like even studies nowadays, because it's a lot of talk also about reducing the working time, to even work less. Even this has been proving that it's increased productivity, So even if we work less than 40 hours per week, it has been proven that those workers are more productive and they actually do more if they work less than if they have to be there for 8 hours for 5 days per week. So I think that, we need to drop and let go some of the concepts that we had from the past, and we need to embrace that the changes are happening. We live in a diverse world. Why not embrace it? Why not support it? Why not even promote it? This would be my advice. And just like be transparent and like have this idea that, you're not only doing this for profit, you're doing it exactly for the community, so that you create, a workplace, that you create opportunity, that you provide something. Workers are the asset, they're not the enemies. They are the one producing everything. So, treasure them, reward them, and reward it's exactly a decent salary, It's not so hard at the end of the day. It's really not, or it shouldn't be.
Very inspiring part, which I think is the best entry place for Barabar now, the human rights-based board game I already told you about. And I think our listeners already know what it is about. So I want to invite you on a journey. If you're interested in board games or card games or human rights, any of those mentioned, that's a
I
game
love
for you.
all of them. Can I just say that I love board games and of course, yes, human rights as well.
Do you know, I'm actually interested because I know in Albanian, in Turkish, in Bulgarian, and in Macedonian we use that word, barabar. Do you use that in Slovenian?
No.
You've
don't know.
always been that type of the Balkans that you cut out. Okay, barabar means all together.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, it's the first time I'm hearing this.
It's a word which somehow infiltrates different Balkan languages.
Okay.
And this game actually is designed by a Bulgarian human rights trainer, a colleague of ours in our previous heads. It's an organization which works in order to support people to talk about human rights in a gamification setting. So you have to choose different scenarios where you're trying to save the world, more or less what you're doing.
Okay.
So you can have, for example, a giant spider invasion in Earth, and you have to combine different clans of characters, from entrepreneurs, I'm sure your favorites, to scientists,
sure.
artists, ecologists, activists, who combine forces together to find the giant spider invasion or a zombie apocalypse or things like that.
Oh, wow.
So it's a great game, and you can order it on the website of Barabar. And by this, you're also supporting a small social business back at home. So do that and enjoy.
I'm doing that.
Okay.
No, for sure. But then you need to join me and play because, like, I'm new in Brussels. I don't have many friends yet, so I need a group of people who will play with me.
I'm sure, Thea, that after this interview, you'll either have a lot of new friends.
Okay.
No.
No, but like really, I love board games. I brought a lot of them with me. Not so cool, like just mostly
This one is
leisure
great.
ones. This one, it's actually educational one as well. So I love it.
It's great.
You know.
It's great. And you can combine like Rosa Parks, Emma Watson, and Nikola Tesla. So it's like current celebrities
Okay.
and human rights heroes. So it's a really good game. So yeah, website below. Going back to you now, if we cut the trade union part of Thea and we focus on the traveling part of Thea, because I see that you go to so many interesting places, and a lot of them are also on my map. So I'm really interested in that part as well. So where have you been? And where is the place that you would like to go back? Because I've discovered that people who travel as much as you do, sometimes it gets boring, and I know this is such a privileged thing to say, but sometimes it gets the same. But there are also places where just they somehow sink in you, in your soul, and you want to go back. So what's your place?
Oh God. Well, okay, yes. Like I'm traveling a lot, but I'm traveling a lot because of work. So I have to admit,
It
yes.
still counts.
It counts, but like I will be very honest, it doesn't sound as cool as it might look like, because many times I just see a hotel and a conference room, and it wouldn't matter if I'm in Brussels or in Madrid or in Tallinn in Estonia. So
You're in a hotel.
Exactly, I'm in a hotel, so I don't have much time, to discover the place. Like okay, last month I was in Santiago de Compostela in Spain, because Spain has a presidency. This was super nice. This I must admit. And we had a meeting room actually in a very historical building, which is just next to the cathedral. So, I actually managed to saw the cathedral and all of those people who came back from their hikes, So this was super, super nice. And yes, I would like to do the Santiago de Compostela, basically road and come back. Of course, but I love hiking.
Speaking about Santiago, but are there any other destinations that stayed with you while traveling?
Yeah, for sure, the best travel happened outside of work. So I was in Palestine, living there for a couple of months, a couple of years ago in a refugee camp. So if I could go back to one place, I would go to Palestine, which I'm not sure I'm still allowed to go. So let's see once I try this. Clearly now it's not the time because of everything that's happening. But this would be my dream destination. I would go back in a second.
Palestine is a very heavy topic at this point. Also for me, it's a very heavy topic. I was in Gaza 4 years ago, and we've talked about it. That it's very sad what's happening, and I must say that the most criticism I've actually heard towards Netanyahu and what the Israeli government is doing, the most criticism actually comes from Israeli people.
Yeah.
And it comes from people who are just really terrified that such a far-right government is in charge.
Exactly. But like, because it's really not, this is not the question what they're trying to present. I mean, there are so many Jews all around the world coming together and saying like, you're not doing this in my name. It's not about that at all. It's about power and occupation and imperialism. And it's super hard for me as well. So probably also because of this in those particular days or even months now, I really wish I could go back. And that it would still be this charming place. I mean, of course, it was always hard there. I mean, also, I was like working there in a refugee camp, It's not that it was vacation, it wasn't. But still, the place is so full of, of just spirit.
It's a very special, it's a very special energy and spirit there. I spent only a week in Gaza during a project where we had to support young physiotherapists and young engineers to work together on a social innovation project. And it was in one of the oldest Islamic universities in the world, in Al-Azhar University. And I was so impressed by everyone, and everybody was so kind, and so many. The thing is that I remember all of those people with their kindness. And to me, seeing what's happening on the news and remembering that kindness is just, it's really difficult. And I hope that things get better and somehow there is peace, because I just think that the only answer there is somehow that there's peace, because both parties, at the end of the day, there's so many civilians and there's so many people that just deserve to live peacefully. And the image of what's in Gaza, and that half of the people living there in this really tiny strip of territory, that half of the people living there are children, and that they're all growing up now with this, just ridiculous.
If they even have a chance to grow up.
Well, I mean, the war and conflict, unfortunately, I mean, you being from Slovenia and me being from Bulgaria, in the 90s, that subject of war is not so distant, even though, so I'm in my late 30s, you look quite younger than me, but I imagine that you're also somewhere there. What happened with Yugoslavia and now what's happening with Kosovo, this constant thread line of war in the Balkans is there.
For sure. And yes, like, I mean, I still remember the war in Slovenia. I mean, okay, like, speaking very honestly, this was nothing in compared to what happened in other, Balkan countries, Yugoslavian countries, or not even, comparing it to the events nowadays, but still, I mean, we really, it's 2023, like, I really didn't thought that we were still going to have wars and fighting for land and occupation. For me, this is like, it's so beyond the civilization norms that we should have by now, So, and of course, I mean, there are no winners in any of the war, So, like, it's not taking sides, because in war, there are no winners. It's just huge loss and huge amount of innocent people suffering, And then, like, I mean, even rebuilding the collective memories afterwards takes time, even, like in our Balkan country, I don't think that we fix everything, come on, like, the tensions are still there, it's still people who hate each other maybe for no good reason, but because it was, their parents or their grandparents, part of it. And then, like, if we allow this hatred to be, transferred to new and new generation, we are never going to recover.
I think we're feeling it very well, this hatred between countries and between generations and between ethnicities in the Balkans, because it's very strange for me, for example, how Bulgaria and Macedonia relationship are developing. It's so sad. And then also you have Serbia and Kosovo and Albania, and it's everybody somehow. And on the other hand, I can zoom out and rationally explain that these are small countries, like small states in a very, like, small
Packed
territories, or
things.
like packed
Yeah.
with different cultures, different religions, different alphabets, different languages, even though we somehow are so similar that to me,
Yeah.
I would say that my own identity is Balkan. I felt like that more or less since I started to be internationally around. And I always remember that the first few times where somebody would ask me something about like my favorite food, I would say things, and somebody from the crowd will say, wow, that's actually Greek, or oh no, that's actually Romanian, or no, that's actually Turkish. And I learned, first of all, not to get offense with that, because I was becoming very defensive in the beginning.
Yeah.
No, moussaka, yogurt, and all of that is Bulgarian. Now I know that it's Balkan, and it's very difficult to track down exactly which person did what. And also
course.
historically, it doesn't really win any games if
Exactly. Why? What does it
what
really
you
matter?
prove. Yeah.
No, I totally get it, because my favorite food is burek. You know?
Oh, it's Bulgarian.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so it's like, yeah, okay, whatever. I like any kind of burek, even if it's Slovenian or Croatian or Bulgarian
I know.
or Turkish or whatever.
It's somewhere
You know?
from that most greatest food point in the world is the Balkans.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
So how was it? I mean, apart from that very weird Balkan mix, how was it growing up in Slovenia in the 90s?
I think I had like the best childhood ever. No, it's just, I mean, what I remember the most is that we were all the time playing outside, you know, like it was so safe, you know, for parents, you know, to let us be outside and play and argue, you know, and like fight, but also like just run for a couple of hours, you know, or like jump gummy twist, you know. I don't even know how to like. I mean, so like I was really enjoying, with the group of friends, like really having this wild childhood that I think that children nowadays maybe don't have anymore, because they don't spend so much time outside, you know. And for me, this is still a very important part of my adult life as well. Like I want to be in the nature, I want to be outdoor, you know. I love doing outdoor activities. So I really remember it, yes, as a good time, also as a safe space. I mean, because it was safe, like, I mean, there were not so many cars. This is the first thing. When you're a child, you know, your parents told you, like, don't cross the road, you know, but like it was safe. There were no cars at that time. I mean, not that many, you know. And yeah, like I remember that it was also like quite modest way of living, but at the same time, so happy. And
Yeah.
I think that there were less inequalities at that time, because exactly, yeah, like, I mean, clearly we weren't probably all at the same social economic level, but I think that more or less probably we were, you know, or at least children didn't have so many different material things that you could really point out, you know, they're coming from a rich family and they're not, you know, like I for sure wasn't coming from a rich family, you know, but I never felt that I don't have
You were so
something.
drastically behind.
Exactly,
Yeah.
you know, so I really remember this. And yeah, like, I mean, we didn't, like, yeah, maybe going to the store, you didn't have 50 different types of chocolate as we have now.
You had
in this
chocolates in Slovenia?
yeah, exactly. But we did have chocolate and it was okay. And this is what I hate the most, that nowadays they are selling this image that we have to be happy because now, you know, we have 50 different types of chocolate and 50 different types of chewing gums and toothpastes, and it's
Well, you cannot afford any of it, so it's fine.
Exactly, you know, so I hate this, and this is not measuring my quality of life, or it's not measuring my happiness. You know, I don't need any of this, you know, especially not because I'm paying the price for it in all of the other aspects, you know. So yeah, like, I mean, I really remember my childhood as a very happy era. Yeah.
I have similar like points of memories when it comes to growing up in the 90s in Bulgaria, because I'm born in 1985, so I was 4 years old when the communistic regime fell apart, and for me it doesn't mean anything, so I don't remember. The only thing I do remember is that when I was in the kindergarten we had to have uniforms, and I remember that I had finally my first memory of like a colorful blouse, which my mother got from Hungary. Oh no, from Prague, from the Czech Republic. And I was so excited that I own like a pink thing.
Yeah.
Which to me now it seems so weird, because of course you can like own colorful things, but back then I remember that in my kindergarten I had this blue-gray dress, which was my uniform. That's what I remember. But then in the 90s, I do remember what you were addressing with being outdoors and playing alone and feeling safe. But I also remember that now I realize that we were really not wealthy. I didn't feel it back then because my parents really tried hard. But I remember a few Christmases where it was like really not good. And then I remember many situations where I remember one specific conversation where I fed the stray cats with salami. And my mom got so upset because they were saving the salami only for me. And to me, I was just... there's so many stray cats and dogs in Bulgaria that I was feeling like we need to feed them all. And I was going on the balcony like peace, 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 so all the cats would come. And I opened the fridge and whatever there was, I shared, which I just remember that my parents got so upset, but like in a really sad way, not in like a responsible adult way. You should not just feed cats. So I think that a lot of that has somehow also shaped who I am today when it comes to, I don't know, being quite leftist when it comes to political decisions. Do you think that shaped you in a way? I mean, apart from you liking to be outdoors?
Yes, definitely. I mean, also because like I know what has been achieved in socialism in Yugoslavia. And like, especially because we talk so much about women, voting right for women, was done in Yugoslavia. Reproductive rights in of women were achieved in times of Yugoslavia.
The right, know that.
Yes, the right to abortion, was achieved at that time. And it was one of the progressive ideas. And this is why also in Slovenia, we have a right to abortion because of those times, And nowadays, in 2023, we are, facing groups of, far right who want to ban this right, So for me, and especially, childcare, full employment, like involvement of women at the labor market, all of those things were achieved at that time. And like, yes, I'm not hiding at all. Of course, I'm leftist,
No.
And I'm like, I'm not saying everything was good because clearly it wasn't. Not everything was good in times of Yugoslavia, but there were like good things that happened, especially when it comes to the development of rights and, this social progress, development of also public services, childcare, the fact that, women inclusion at the labor market was the highest, at those times. And clearly, I cannot say so much from my own experience because I was also 4 years old, when the Yugoslavia broke down Slovenia called for independence. But why I also am somehow Yugo nostalgic, still a little bit, I can admit, it's because I speak with my parents who lived that time, and yes, we didn't have much either, but, they got employed when they were 20 years old. It wasn't hard to get a job. It wasn't hard, to be in school, they got their kids, when they were super young. And of course, they were struggling as well. But sooner or later, they were able to get an apartment, or at least to pay the rent.
Yeah.
You know how hard it is for nowadays, for young people, to dream of paying the rent of their own apartment, It's all of those things. And even, when I speak with my mom mostly, I think that she's worried for us. She sees that we are working so much. And at the end of the day, do we really have better quality of life? We don't, there is no work-life balance anymore. We are struggling. We are in this precarious position. We cannot pay the rent. We're not thinking about creating our own family because I'm in a super, insecure position, So she sees all this. And I think that, sometimes she would say that, no, at that time it was better.
Yeah.
So, because of this, I think that this understanding, there are alternatives that exist. This is also a driving force for me. I don't want to give up. I don't want to see this system to continue because I think that it's exploitive system that doesn't bring social justice, and I'm dreaming about alternatives. And some of the alternatives could be inspired from what we saw in the past. And something, could be learned from this model. And yeah, I think that of course it's shaping me a lot. But also I think because like if you're a woman from a Balkan, you're a fighter. No?
What choice do you have?
Exactly. You have no other choice. So like we're not privileged for sure. We had to fight for everything. So I think that yeah, the environment that I grew up with.
Do you know my favorite joke about the Balkans and Eastern Europe is it's such a bad joke. So I want to apologize in advice.
Yeah.
Yes. So you know how in the States they have all of those superheroes like in Marvel, in DC. Do you know why we don't have any superheroes in the Balkans?
Why?
Because we know that nobody will come to save us.
Exactly, but it's part of our
such
survival.
A bad joke, but it's such a reality, though.
But I think it's also a coping mechanism. It's survival thing, and I think it did make us stronger. Like seriously, I feel as a strong woman, and I never again want to be a victim. So.
My sense of belonging when it comes to my Balkan identity and when it comes to how I feel, and I feel much more and more Balkan with each year passing, which is a very strange thing to say. But I do feel that also in Brussels. I've seen so less representation of the Balkans as a region in comparison with, let's say, the Benelux, the Nordic states, even the Baltic states, if I have to be very honest. So the Balkans, we're like a quarter of Europe, a tiny maybe quarter, a fifth of Europe. But still, when it comes to leadership position in the European networks, when it comes to decision makings in the institutions, I don't see that much Balkan people.
Yeah. I would say that the first obstacle, it's of course the accessibility of this internal market for them, because if they are not part of the EU, if they want to come and work, they need a working visa, so this is the first obstacle. Then of course they cannot work in the European institutions. So I think that because of this, it's less and less of them. And then, of course, I think that Europe still has this perception that, Balkan, it's like less developed. So I guess this kind of stereotype, it's also present in some of the mindsets of the people, that they think that, if you're coming from a Balkan, probably you didn't have good education, or you didn't have the experience that would be necessary to work on a fancy job in Brussels or something like this. I think that, it's
to me, the problem in that is that even the countries, the states which are European Union members, like Greece, Slovenia, Bulgaria, Romania, and even the next chapter after the enlargement, like North Macedonia, these are countries which, if we are not properly involved into the decision making, into the strategy conversations, a lot of the EU things don't really reflect our reality. And that's something that really troubles me, because I remember when, for example, the invasion of Ukraine happened, I saw that it's so many of the boards of different places, like just boardrooms generally have a lot of Benelux. So that's Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, even still some UK people, Nordics, but then not many of them understand how Eastern Europe works.
Yeah.
So that's something that is an actual political problem. So a representation problem, which is shaped into a political problem.
Of course, because it's also loss of the potential. I think that, many people who were, active or like alive or involved in this Balkan war, could maybe bring valuable lessons in conflict resolution as well, And I remember when this whole war started, a lot of people also said, it's really a shame, we didn't have, war on European soil, for 60 years.
I heard that, and I was no, that's not true.
Exactly, and this is so disrespectful to what happened in Balkan. I'm sorry, but Balkan, it's also part of European soil, Maybe it's not the EU, but did you completely forget, about all this? So, it's really, I would say, lack of understanding, which of course leads into the loss of potential. If we could capture, all of the knowledge that it's out there, if we could bring the right people, if we would just at least see them, because I think that, they don't even see this as a valuable contribution. So, it's a shame.
Well, have a look. There's a lot of potential. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, look, let's try to finish a bit on a positive mark. So, there's so many things going on now wrong in the world.
Yeah.
Not only we touched upon Gaza, we touched upon Ukraine. Unfortunately, there's also like Nagorno-Karabakh, there is Sudan, there's so many
Yeah.
conflicts, active conflicts. And it's not really possible to start the conversation on labor rights if you have the conversation of human rights disrespected. So let's leave all of that aside. And can you explain to me what actually makes you happy as a person? Because I do believe, and this conversation gravitates around it, that in order to be a good worker, a good employee, a good leader, you have to be somehow a happy person, at least decently functioning enough.
Yeah.
So what makes you happy?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, like my work makes me happy. Really, I find so much enjoyment in it. And like, yes, my eyes shine when I can plan a new campaign, a new project, when I'm negotiating, when I'm fighting with employers. Even this makes me happy, when I'm like,
Sure.
No, but like really, so I do love my work and I love doing it, but also because like I also love learning. So I think this is also this, educational part of our personality as well. I value, the education, the learning aspect. So my work also allows me, to really understand, the different labor systems in different countries. This is so privileged, that you can speak with so many knowledgeable people and grasp the information from them. So it's also super inspiring how they're overcoming the challenges. What are they changing in the trade union structure? So like, it's a lot of inspiration as well, a lot of motivated people. So they help, like this whole cycle, to regain its power. So it's also other people making me happy and motivating me. And yeah, but okay, yeah, I do have some social life, I guess, at some point.
No one will believe you after that.
Of course, nobody. No, but like, yeah, but also like, but seriously, I'm a board game fan. So I love playing board games. Seriously, this makes me happy. And yes, outdoor activities. I love the mountains, which is super.
Good you moved to Belgium.
Exactly. So this is why I'm a little bit less happy since I moved here to Belgium. But yes, I at least go outside, and yeah, I'm planning vacations in the mountains. So hopefully soon I will go hiking or something like this. So yeah, just spending time with friends and family, and yeah, really doing like new things. I'm always up to a new challenge. So whenever it's something new and cool, yeah, let's try it. So yeah.
Nice. Well, that's a very optimistic finale for all of the pessimistic things we discussed. Thank you very much for being here, for being very open about your experiences and sharing so much from what you've achieved and what you've done. I'm so happy that I know you, and I'm so happy that we've met finally after 1 month of juggling between schedules. And well, if you're interested in more conversations like that with Thea, please let me know, suggest guests, and give us some feedback about this conversation. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel and support us on Patreon, Tea and Politics with Maya. And I hope that we'll see more often now you're in Brussels.
Yes, but Maya, thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure. Probably I shared too much, but it was just so nice talking with you. So thank you, really.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, okay, take care. See you next week. Be kind, hug your dog, enjoy life. Join a trade union.
Yes, please do. It's everybody are going to benefit from this. Do it.